First I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I do and my experiences in Arizona, and then I'm going to talk to you about what I hope to get you all to do here in Illinois. So I'm a lobbyist for the Secular Coalition for Arizona, which is the first state affiliate of the Secular Coalition for America, and they lobby on behalf of non-theistic Americans at the national level. So we do that at the state level, and we lobby mostly on issues of separation of church and state, which try to nobody threw something at me. I said, oh, like 4 times. we try and focus on substantive issues versus symbolic issues, so we're not as interested in the 10 Commandments in the State House versus how religious people are using their arbitrary values to oppress minorities or vulnerable populations. So one of the best ways to ensure reality-based government is to keep religion out of it. So I'm not here to talk about the evils of religion per se, but I would like to talk about the evils of religion in government. And we can talk about the evils of religion per se at the restaurant after. So here's the deal, is that when religion is allowed to intrude in secular civil government, religious people are able to use faith or tradition or authority to oppress people, minorities and vulnerable people, and then there's no recourse because rational arguments can be dismissed with arbitrary, God said homosexuality is gross, so they don't get human rights anymore. So we cannot allow laws to privilege religious ideas or be based on anything besides reason and evidence, period. So, with that in mind, Arizona. In Arizona, Democrats have less than 1/3 of the votes in both houses, and while the Secular Coalition for Arizona is a nonpartisan organization, in Arizona the Republican Party has quite openly declared war on separation of church and state, and are trying to sell this idea that church-state separation is a myth made up by the liberal elites to, corrupt the family or something. So we have legislators that, we have one openly non-theistic state senator, Kirsten Sinema, who sort of affectionately refers to her colleagues as flat earthers, which is not terribly far from the truth. They openly talk about the Earth being 6,000 years old and trying to make sure that science education is based on those values. And then we have the Center for Arizona Policy, which, like the Illinois Family Institute, is trying to inject biblical principles into the public arena. And since over the past year they passed 12 bills that have no secular basis whatsoever. There's adoption legislation that preferences married heterosexual people over singles or same-gendered couples when adopting children out of foster care. And there's additional barriers to divorce. There's an extra 180-day waiting period now. So again, it's privileging a particular family form based on religious values versus what actually is good for human well-being. So anyway, point being, reason-loving secularists in Arizona do not have a lot of allies. There are a lot of homophobes, a lot of young earth creationists, a lot of religious ideologues. But I really like working in this environment because it's constantly challenging, and I'm constantly learning about how you negotiate with people from extremely different ideological perspectives and how you transcend that extreme difference to negotiate for joint gains. And then hopefully I can take that knowledge and share it with people like you who are going to affect change in your state government. So that's fun. So anyway, yes, Arizona's horrible, really, really horrible. But it's pretty. In some ways, the environment there is a little bit easier than what you have in Illinois, simply because our religious ideologues are very open about where they're coming from. And while in Illinois you have people who are in the pocket of the Illinois Family, the Council Institute? Yeah, and then the Catholic Conference as well. They're not openly saying, on their campaign trail, that they're writing legislation for Jesus, where in Illinois they will say that. So So you have to be a little bit discerning in terms of figuring out what the motivation behind legislation is, if it's sort of preferencing a particular religious worldview arbitrarily. But you're all fantastic critical thinkers, so you should be. Oh, but they have websites, yay, where they publish their legislative agendas. So you can go to the Illinois Family Institute, and you can go to the Catholic Council and look at what their legislative agenda is for the upcoming year, and then track those bills. And when you see something that's disturbing, stop it before it gets out of committee. Because once you hear about it on the news, it is already too late. People have all the backroom negotiations have been done, the deals are done, people have been convinced, and you don't have an opportunity. But when it's in committee, you can testify in committee, you can make arguments. It hasn't gotten media attention, constituencies aren't involved, and so that's the place to do it. So just a brief rundown of some of the stuff that's going to be coming up in Illinois. So the Illinois Family Institute, you guys, I got to tell you, their website was so disturbing, because even the Center for Arizona Policy sort of couches things a little bit, and this was just like, we distinguish the difference between the Supreme Court's misinterpretation of President Thomas Jefferson's wall of separation between church and state, and the correct meaning that the state is forbidden to encroach on the duties man owes to his creator. So that's what's going on for you guys. Yeah, so they actively oppose comprehensive sex ed policy, which is maddening to me. I could do a whole talk on that. It's completely unethical to deny young people factual information about their own bodies that enables them to make responsible decisions about their own sex lives. And the reason, then all of the evidence points to the efficacy of comprehensive sex ed. So, but I'm not going to go on a tangent about that. So, of course, they oppose equal marriage rights, which Illinois does have the civil unions for same-sex separately equal. But they're working on getting rid of that as well. And not only just marriage equality, any human rights. They say, we support a full repeal of SB 3186, a law which adds sexual orientation and gender identity to Illinois' Human Rights Act. We believe such laws invariably erode the freedom of people of faith and others who oppose homosexuality and normalizing gender confusion, transgenderism, as a matter of conscience. We support laws to protect adoptive and foster children from being placed in homosexual households. I grew up a little in my Anyway, so let's move on to the Illinois Catholic Conference. This is actually an interesting lobby group because their agenda has a lot of really good policy ideas that maybe are inspired by their religious values, but can be supported on a secular basis. And those are all mixed in with the really crazy stuff. So they're doing some really great things for healthcare and for working on poverty relief. And then they're also trying to eliminate comprehensive sex ed and so on. But I mention the good policy because this is an organization that you might consider collaborating with where your worldview does overlap. When you can partner with an organization like this, not only do you enlarge your constituency for the policy that you're lobbying on, but then you're building relationships with people who are going to disagree with you on other issues, and then you have a more friendly basis to negotiate over that difference. So I really encourage collaboration wherever you can find it in whatever unlikely place, because this really give you future opportunities. So yes, okay, so they would like to eliminate abortion. They're also pushing for conscience clauses, which would enable pharmacists to deny women access to safe legal medication as determined by her physician. And a bunch of other stuff. And again, I encourage you to look at their websites and pay attention to their legislative agendas. And then one other group I want to mention that's going to have some boilerplate legislation coming up in the next season is Personhood USA, and you may have heard of them before because they've had votes come up in, I think, Mississippi and Colorado, that the law gives legal personhood rights to unborn fetuses. I don't want to use the word unborn, I don't like that. I want to use that again. Preborn?
Itself means not born. So.
How about, like, everything is unborn. I mean, everything...
If it's a fetus, it hasn't been born.
It's just so... I don't know. She's bio girl.
I'm studying developmental biology.
No, I completely agree with you. And you know, and I want to say, too, that there's a whole range of rational positions that you can hold on abortion, but if we're going to legislate on this issue, it has to be based on reasons, not on a sense of a feeling that a glassicist is a person with a soul. Like, that's not... It's not cool. It's not cool. So, okay, so you check out organizations like this, you follow their agendas, and then what next? So the Illinois state legislature has actually a really pretty user-friendly website, and you can go on there and you can track bills. You can follow them when they're going to be scheduled in committee. You can find out who your legislator is, who's on what committee, who's the chair of what committee. So I encourage you to check out their website and sort of try and watch where this legislative agenda is translating on the calendar. And you certainly can send emails and letters and phone calls to your legislator, but I highly, highly, highly recommend investing the time in getting in front of an actual person. And so perhaps organizing a lobby day with your group, and maybe other groups on campus can go down with you to Springfield. But it's much harder for a legislator to write off an actual person, and particularly if you're able to bring people with you who are affected by the legislation that you're talking about. I know that when I did citizen lobbying with Equality Maryland on marriage equality issues, we brought gay and lesbian families with us, and we brought their kids with us, and it was much harder for legislators to say your family is not legitimate when they're talking to an 8-year-old who loves their mom, you know. And it's, I know that some people feel like that's emotional manipulation, but we all know that people are not motivated by rational argument. Like, we can agree with something intellectually, but what causes us to make a decision is a non-rational component. So we have to be willing to utilize that method of persuasion as well. So I think that's kind of the rundown. I want to have plenty of time for questions and discussion. I guess one other thing I want to mention is just always avoid positional language. If you're talking about abortion, don't use words like pro-life and pro-choice. Find out your legislator's background, maybe their religion, frame things in their own language, because then you have common ground and common language and you're talking about the same thing. You're not drawing battle lines right from the get-go. If you come in and say, this is anti-choice legislation, and you're talking to a pro-life legislator, they're going to be like, yes, good, it is. Yes, So, and it's insulting, you know, like to call yourself pro-choice is to say they're anti-choice, which may not be how they think about what motivates their position. And, you know, to say I'm pro-life is saying that you're anti-life, which is not true either. So it's just, it's disingenuous language, and it causes needless barriers. So anyway. Okay, so really, truly, truly, I want you guys to get involved, because the major erosion that's happening to church-state separation is happening at state and local levels. It's happening at school boards, it's happening in the state house, and that's not glamorous. We pay attention to kind of the national scene, but it's getting chipped away at the local level. And you guys are smart and passionate, and you're an organized constituency already, so you have a lot of power to affect change. So I really encourage you to do that, please. And I am happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.